Hello, listeners. I'm Timstradamus, and it's Monday. And with me, as always, is my talented and beautiful co-hostess, Voyse.
Good morning, Timstradamus, and welcome all listeners to Monday, where you realize the weekend just flew by so fast, and now you have to start all over again.
Yeah. Voyse and I enjoy reading and talking about stories from the internet that are interesting, funny, and dramatic. Because of our love of stories, we've come together and created this channel to share with you those experiences.
And hopefully give you some food for that.
Well, procrastinating Capricorns, it's your turn today.
Hey there, Capricorn. Brace yourself for an extraordinary cosmic spectacle as we step past mid-June. This month, the universe unveils a grand tapestry of experiences, interwoven with twists, turns, and infinite potential for personal growth. Prepare to be dazzled as we embark on a remarkable journey together. In the professional realm, you might encounter a few surprise hurdles, but hey, don't fret. You're a determined and resilient goat, and you've got what it takes to conquer any challenge that comes your way. Stay laser focused on your long-term goals and trust that those instincts of yours will lead you to amazing breakthroughs. Dare to take some calculated risks, and who knows, you might just land on the moon. When it comes to relationships, it's all about communication, baby. Clear and open conversations are the secret sauce to stronger connections. Tune in to the needs of your partner or family members and channel your inner understanding and compassion. Remember, a little understanding goes a long way to building those love bridges. Now, let's talk money, honey. This month's financial dance might have a few unexpected moves, but don't go throwing your wallet out the window just yet. Exercise some serious caution and avoid impulsive money moves. Seek out opportunities to boost your financial stability, and don't be afraid to ask for professional advice if needed. You got this, money-savvy Capricorn. So, my determined Capricorns, reaching the end of June demands your patience and perseverance. Embrace the challenges like a fearless mountain climber because they're stepping stones on your journey of growth.
Well, it sounds like Capricorns are going to have an interesting end of June.
Yes, between a little hurdle, I think they'll be just fine.
Bah. And I have it right this time. They have the upper body of the goat.
They do. You're right.
Well, now that the reading is done for the week, why don't we get into stories while enjoying my morning cup of brew?
Do you know what you're going to drink this morning?
No.
That's right. It's a little blend that I'd like to put together. It's got one added ingredient that I hope you'll enjoy. It's strawberry, lemon, orange blossom, and pea flower tea.
Ooh. Oh yeah, that's good.
I was hoping the citrusiness from the lemon would go with the pea flower, like suggested from our commenters.
Yeah, that's really good.
Well, for any listeners wanting to follow along, all story links are in the description below. For our first story, am I the a-hole for not paying my, male 54, daughter's, female 25, tuition? My ex and I divorced 23 years ago because we disagreed a lot about priorities. I'll just say right away that I worked maybe too much in the beginning of my marriage. My career is very prestigious, and I worked hard to get where I am today. Anyway, our daughter Cassie lived with my ex and stayed with me on the weekends. I paid child support and gave Cassie everything she could need or want. Newest clothes, electronics, instrument, trips. You know it, she had it. As she got older, I tried to teach her lessons about work ethic, good education, and a meaningful and lucrative career. Cassie is brilliant and could go Ivy if she wanted to. When she started applying for colleges, her mother guilted into remaining in state. I didn't want her to settle, but liked the idea of saving a few grand. 2 years in, Cassie started to gradually drop out. I say gradually because she went from 18 credits and on the dean's list every semester to 12 credits, then 6, and failing biology and math. It didn't make sense. Eventually, she told me she couldn't do school anymore and just wanted to work and make her own money. What teenager doesn't want a free ride with no cares? I was paying for everything. All she had to do was study. After a screaming match, we stopped communicating for a period of time. Then, just last week, she calls out of the blue to tell me that she lives on her own on the other side of the country. She and my ex are no contact. She tells me that she's ready to go back to school, but would need me to pay. Hell no, I'm not an ATM, and since she's 25, it's not really my responsibility anymore. My wife thinks I'm an a-hole, and my daughter does too. Am I the a-hole?
Interesting story to start off Monday with. So let's see if we understand all of the facts. Her father is 54 years old, has a daughter that's in her 20s now, mid-20s. It sounds like he already lined up all the ducks in the row as far as their future is concerned. Got a good job. He admits it. He was working a little too much. So daughter gets to college. I guess everything is going well for a little bit, but that didn't last very long from what it sounds like. I'm not sure what transpired between the start and how many years was it? Was it 2 or is it only a year? Like, they don't explain when she drops out of school.
When, no.
Okay. I wonder what happened that set her on that path from being on the dean's list to being out of school all of a sudden. Well, fast forward. She's now on the other side of the country, from what I understand, a couple years later.
Correct. No contact with her mom.
And her father for a little bit. So she kind of just disappeared off the map after dropping out of school.
It sounded like she dropped out of school. They had a huge argument, a screaming match, as he said.
She wanted to go about her way now and etch out a life for herself.
Correct.
A couple years
Maybe
passed.
try and figure out what she wants to do.
Well, sure. At this point, she was either 24, 23-ish in that zone.
Possibly.
Maybe a little bit younger.
Probably a little bit younger.
Are we talking like freshman in college? So was she like 18?
It sounds like she was propelled into going into college just after high school.
Okay.
Which, I mean, as you know, we don't really know what we want to do so young and
nobody knows.
out of high school. If you're being forced to go into college and you really haven't locked down what you'd like to do professionally, I think that's pretty unfair for her.
Well, most kids go into college without any idea what they want to do. Major swapping is a big thing. You may go into school for one focus, but you'll leave with a whole completely different focus than when you came in.
But it sounds like rather than take her, look, I don't want to keep going and doing school right now. I want to just work and see what I'd like to do.
Yeah,
instead,
he completely floored the conversation and said, look, he doesn't go into exactly what he said, but obviously it led to a fight. And I understand from his point of view, being a parent, education, get it done, right? Then move on with your life. But if she really is having I'm not going to say identity crisis, but at that age, you're still figuring out who you are and what you want to do. It can be constricting to go, okay, I've found something I think I want to do, but then you start pushing it forward in your mind going, is this something I want to do for the rest of my professional career? That can be a little daunting, especially when you're talking about someone so young, and that can cripple you.
So let me give you a feeling of the poster and how he answered one of the commenters when they asked the reason why his daughter potentially dropped out of school.
Oh, so he has a theory.
She said mental health, but you know how that goes.
Oh, no, boo-boo. He's of a different generation. Oh, man, I can't believe he answered. I wonder where he finally figured out he was wrong. Does he? I don't know. I hope he did. But it sounds like he's set in his ways. And if you had an argument with your daughter and she disappeared on you for an extended amount of years and you didn't do any self-reflecting on why that was, I don't think you're learning any lessons from this at all. So why would you have ever even post this on Reddit? Because you're not looking to have a different perspective. You're looking to have your viewpoint stoked so you can keep being a douchebag. In this situation, because we are asking if he's the a-hole for not wanting to pay for her schooling anymore.
Correct.
I mean, it certainly is his prerogative. It's his right. It's his money. That I can give you if we're going to go about it from that part of the argument. But I got to say, I feel like you're the a-hole because it kind of sounds like if it wasn't your way, it was no way. And your daughter was trying to figure it out. As a parent, I think you owe it to your kids because from the time they're now we're talking about kids being hyper focused into certain things in life before they're ever even an adult. So they're being told from elementary till they graduate high school what they're going to do by everyone around them. And then the second you finally get into an open space where you can think and figure out who you are, college, normally for most folks, if they get lucky enough to go to college, you should give them the chance to figure it out. And yeah, if it takes them off the path that you didn't set them on, you really shouldn't be freaking out and pushing her so far away that she'd rather go contactless. I feel bad for your daughter though, because it sounds like she's finally piecing it together. I think for a lot of people, you're very different from when you're 18 to when you're 25, 26. You're a completely different person. I would just wonder why he's on this path. It's very interesting because the only thing I go back to with this poster is that he's just controlling. And if it wasn't his way, it wasn't going to be anyway. You're very closed-minded. So you're definitely the a-hole OP. Hopefully she can piece her life together without your assistance because I feel like even if you were to help her, you're probably one of those people that will hold it over her head.
Well, let me let you know what the consensus is on Reddit, and then I'll delve into a little bit of what our poster's personality is sort of like.
Oh no.
So the consensus is that he's the a-hole. Now, don't get me wrong. A lot of people actually put down in the comments, if you don't have the means to pay for your child's education, it shouldn't be something that's burdened on a parent that definitely is trying their best. However, There's a lot of things that pop up to the commenters regarding this. The first thing is that he says he sees her on the weekends, every other weekend potentially. He actually put it down as, he said, Cassie lived with my ex and stayed with me on weekends. He paid child support and gave Cassie everything she could need or want.
Well, that's why when he was explaining this story, it didn't sound like money was the issue here.
It's not the issue, but if that's the way that you're showing your child that you love them is by spending money to make them happy.
I completely agree with that. I was just rebuttaling when someone said it could have been money issues that he didn't want to pay.
Oh, yeah, no. First thing, he hypes that he's got a prestigious job. And I guess in order to flex himself, he actually lets people know that he's got a PhD in civil engineering and a PhD in computer science.
Well, good for you.
Now, here's where a lot of people say, you might have this prestigious education. You clearly don't understand relationships, especially with children. Your child doesn't want you to throw a bunch of money at them, but that's what you taught your child your love is just throwing money to prove that she's worth the time and the effort. And the moment that you said, well, that she even reached out, a lot of people say maybe it truly wasn't her reaching out for the education part as more to reach out as, does my dad still love me?
Sure.
Because that's the premise that he showed her. Me paying for your stuff is me showing that I love you. And now that's no longer the case. And that's kind of how it feels to a lot of people. In fact, some of the comments that he says is, guilt does not impede free will. Come on. I agree. My job is done. I taught you everything I could. Now go. Or the last one that he put in is, my parents were immigrants. Kids have it too easy. In one of the comments that he puts down, he says, that may very well be, but a lot of people struggle in school. Then they just work harder and focus. You can recover when it's over. His daughter's trying to recover, and now he's nowhere near as a support system to even assist.
Everyone is different. And I think that's unfortunately what he's missing the point on is everyone gets to the finish line in their own way.
Now, unfortunately, because he showed just how bad of a dad role model he is, it kind of set a really negative tone inside the comments regarding fathers. There's actually a commenter who's called Lost in Wonderland that actually put down her and her husband never wanted kids. In fact, the two children that they have, they call contraception defiers.
Wow.
Lovingly.
Okay.
They said that unfortunately, her and her husband are both on the spectrum, which is one of the reasons why they didn't want children. But when they have their kids, that has never stopped them from loving their children. And they've had some on the spectrum challenges with their own children now that they're currently dealing with. Their father is the first and foremost to actually be an advocate for their children and their well-being. And she wanted to put that down in the comments of, this guy might not be the best father, but he definitely shouldn't be the viewpoint on what all fathers are like.
Yep.
Yeah, our poster in this story, he might be a tool, but there's really a lot of good fathers out there that's trying their best.
Yes, there are.
Well, let's go ahead and walk away from this situation and let's go into this next story. Am I the a-hole? I told my parents I can't take my sister from foster care for 2 months. I, 22 female, have a younger sister, 18 female, who's aging out of foster care. I had the luck of being adopted, whereas she did not. She had an arrangement to stay with her foster parent, though to my knowledge, the foster parent suddenly changed her mind, despite charging her money to stay there right now. She's set to need somewhere to go by August, but my lease ends in November. I currently have a 25 female roommate who isn't comfortable living in our 2-bedroom apartment with someone she's never met. My parents, who have 2 guest bedrooms, keep insisting that I need to entirely disregard my roommate's opinion, despite her being on the lease and paying her share of rent every month. That I simply have to tell her my sister is coming and she has no say. My roommate and I have already considered other options, sorting out a new apartment and have it ready by August. This isn't feasible because she can't be on 2 leases. I can't afford this one alone, and my little sister will need several months to become financially stable enough to pay bills like rent. I am physically unable to carry her financial weight. We are willing to get separate leases come November, where I can then take in my sister. Granted, my parents are willing to step in if she doesn't have the money, because again, I am not in a position where I can keep her afloat, but I have been insistent that it can't happen happen until then. As a result, my parents are calling me selfish and telling me that I'm choosing my friend over my sister who desperately needs my help. I am frustrated because if they are that upset about it, they can spare a bedroom. After all, they are the one making the demand that I have to take her. That's what makes sense to me. Regardless, am I the a-hole? Edit. A lot of people have asked, so I'm just going to put it here for context. The parents in question are my adopted parents. Our biological parents are dead. The only reason we ended up split up in the foster care system was because the state made a mistake only removing me from the home before our bio parents died. And by the time they realized this, the bio parents had fled the state with my siblings. They died 8 years later, which is when my siblings ended up in the foster care system. Not to mention, until I found them and made contact, the state they were in didn't even know I existed. Am I the a-hole?
Well, she cleared up something that I was thinking about during the story. She kept bringing up her parents. So I'm like, wait a second. Is this parents or is this obviously adopted parents? It sounds like you had a very rough start to life. That whole past sounds like there is a lot inside of it. We'll start with the facts. She's 22. Her sister is 18 and about to get out of the system. A couple more months is what they said.
Correct.
And now she's living in an apartment with her and a roommate. They're both paying basically one half of the rent each. So it's making everything work. So right now, her adoptive parents are telling her that she needs to get her sister out of the system now. But they're giving her terrible advice on how to go about this. You cannot start that type of strife when your daughter in this situation is barely making it by on her own right now anyway. By you putting that bad advice in your daughter's head that her roommate's opinions and feelings don't matter on this situation, you're putting her day-to-day in peril. What is she supposed to do if her roommate ups and leaves because she just brought her sister into the apartment? She told you she wasn't comfortable with it. Your roommate has clearly said that that is not an option for her. That's just how you have to live life, unfortunately. You got to play with the cards you're dealt. If your parents really didn't like that decision that you had to come to because you had a conversation with your roommate, well, that's hard luck. Your adoptive parents should have stepped in and see, that's what's weird, is they're pushing her to get her sister, even though they know the situation, but they have 2 guest rooms open in their home.
Correct.
So why wouldn't they then, if it was so important to them, why wouldn't they have brought in the sister? If you know that she cannot do that legally, financially, responsibly, right? There's so many things that are going against it. Why are you putting those type of bad ideas in her head? At the end of the day, if she does lose out on that apartment because either the lease was broken, the roommate left, where else is she going to go? Then now you have 2 people that don't have a place to live. She already outlines that she's got a good plan. Please do not put your situation in peril. Listen to your roommate. Make sure you respect them too, because if you're both contributing, it does matter what they think, not what your parents think. They don't live with you. They're not paying your bills. I do not believe that you are the a-hole in this situation.
Well, the consensus is that she's not the a-hole. In fact, yeah, this raised a lot of questions inside the comment section. But luckily, we have an update on the whole situation.
Hopefully good.
So let me go ahead and read that now. Hi guys.
Hi.
This is a pretty simple update, but for starters, things have somewhat resolved themselves without much from me, which is one huge relief. Essentially, I urged my little sister to continue to look into other things, contact her social worker, utilize the resources that some of y'all, my roommate, and I found. I informed her of just about everything I could, transitional housing, etc. Then, I ended up telling my parents something that I think got through to them, which was in a sense that I am trying to live my life, get my education, and start my career, and that can't happen if I'm responsible for her. Truthfully, taking her on with or without my roommate's approval would have been so much more than the risk of eviction, which yes, it's in our lease. Sorry I didn't get back to some of you on that. It would have been the financial stress of taking on a kid, legal adult, but she is still a kid, who doesn't know how to handle bills and general budgeting, would have no transportation. We don't live near buses and Ubers are a good $40 here. No money, etc. I love her. I care for her. But the point was made to my parents when I emphasized that I'm worrying about me right now. I've lived with people who don't pull their weight. And as much as I sympathize with her inability to, I'm not in a position where I can take that responsibility on again. I'm not sure what about it got through to them, but it did, and they backed off. They agreed. They're offering to get her an apartment and help her find a roommate while covering her rent while she adjusts. They had their own valid reasons for not wanting her in their house. And if things go well with her, they'd cover her transportation to school/work until they could get her a car. The plan is to essentially slowly work her up to paying for everything, and it's ultimately a good situation for her. She has 2 plans lined up right now, both feasible, each with help from willing parties, and they have left the ball in her court.
Fantastic. It sounds like your adoptive parents, because they don't know this girl. She's just the sister.
Correct.
And they're choosing to help take her on and slowly build up her life.
Correct.
Oh, okay. Well, I had one view of them before, and now good for them. They sound like good people.
And it seems like they might have had that conversation of why it is that her sister can't take on one of those guest rooms. And it sounds like
At least they're respecting it.
Exactly. And our poster understands that they have valid reasons for it, even if they're not letting us know what those reasons are.
I mean, it sounds like both parties now understood each other's viewpoints.
Well, let's go ahead and walk away from this situation since it seems like they're doing pretty good. And let's see what happens with some neighbors and a cop. For our next story, am I the a-hole for calling the cops on my neighbors?
I hope I'm not hearing this story through the villain's perspective again.
We're going to see. My 33 female and husband, 37 male, own a lakefront property. We went out on our porch this morning and we noticed a truck on our property down by the lake. We haven't ever seen this truck before and don't know who owns it. We've also noticed a circular wear pattern around a fire pit we have down by the lake from vehicles circling it, though we haven't been able to spot the vehicle responsible. We don't necessarily have problems with people using our lakeshore property to go fishing or boating, but they do need to ask us at least. My husband noticed some people in a canoe and tried to get their attention. They looked at him, said something to each other about a man being on the lakeshore, and continued canoeing. He waited 2 hours, and they didn't come to shore or try talking to him. I went out and tried hollering at them as well. They didn't respond to either of us. At 3 hours in, we called non-emergency, and it turns out that they had permission from one of our neighbors, but not from us. The police encouraged us to have the vehicle towed, but another officer suggested bringing their vehicle down and using the PA system to get them to come ashore. We opted to try to get them ashore to talk before having their vehicle removed. Turns out the female of the pair was pregnant and had an active warrant for violation of probation and was feeling lightheaded. An ambulance was called by law enforcement, which removed her from the property. All my husband really wanted was to speak to them about coming to the residence and getting permission before launching a boat and leaving a vehicle parked on our property unattended for hours with us being aware. Some acquaintances have said it may have been a-hole-ish to involve the police, but we feel we gave them adequate chances to resolve it in a much more simple manner that they ignored. Are we the a-hole? Just to go ahead and add a little more clarity to this, the husband of the poster actually posted down in the comments a little more information, so let me go ahead and read that out loud as well.
Interesting.
Husband in post. The liability is one of the reasons I agreed with contacting non-emergency after speaking with my parents. I actually do have multiple no trespassing / beware of dogs / property under video surveillance signs posted. However, they're on approach to the residence from the road. They entered from a small access path that led to my neighbor's property down by the lake. I didn't want to fence it off because our neighbor does occasionally use it to go fishing early in the morning on weekends. He's usually packing up around 10 a.m. and has been doing such since we've owned the property approximately 2 years. He backs up a small SUV to his John boat to load for fishing. He doesn't ride circles around the fire pit or rut the shoreline up launching a canoe with a half-ton truck. I've spoken to him. He waves when I see him from my porch, and my other neighbor knows him and has only good things to say about him. I simply wanted to speak to this new person I'd never seen and ask them not to tear up the grass if it was them that's been doing it, and to let us know when they are going out fishing and who all they'd be taking. I was told by the police that if the warranted pregnant woman described in the post had fallen or hurt herself removing the canoe on our property, we could be liable for certain things. Am I the a-hole?
Okay. So OP says that his wife sees people on the lake that they don't know. There's a truck parked on their property with no one in it. They see some people in a canoe. The husband goes out. I think it's from the husband, right? He goes out there for a couple hours to try to get their attention, to get them to talk, see who they are, because this is private property is what the OP says. This is their private property that truck is parked on, and they want to know who's around, and it's on their property, so they have every right to feel that way. OP says that her husband sat there for 2 hours.
Correct.
Trying to get them to come to shore so that they would at least talk. That is a long time to wait. They were trying to be nice about it, from what it sounds like. They didn't outright just call the police. They gave them time. They say that they got permission from one of the neighbors to be there. And I guess what they thought was, once they got that permission, that it meant the entire perimeter of this area, which it did not.
Not even a little.
That's not how property works. I guess in this situation, the OP definitely is not the a-hole. You have a right to know what's going on your property.
Well, the consensus is also that they are not the a-hole. In fact, they try to go about it in a way that was more patient than what other commenters said that they would.
Imagine waiting for someone for 2 hours on your property to get an answer to a question as to why they're there.
And like they had said, they just wanted to, one, make sure that they knew, hey, next time you want to come on our property, can you please just let us know how long you're going to be there? Nobody knows these people. They're not barring them from enjoying the lake itself. But yes, it is very true that if something should happen on the property, it's the homeowners that generally takes on that liability. Any kind of accidents that seem as essentially almost like homeowners' negligence. So getting permission and being aware of who's on your property so that you're not legally liable for anything happening on it, a lot of commenters can actually understand and side with that. Well, let's go ahead and leave this situation behind, and hopefully maybe for the next time they'll know better.
Canoe away.
And let's go to this family event for our next story. Am I the a-hole for no longer bringing my child to the family events because my brother's child is on the spectrum? I, 29 female, have a twin brother, David. We were conceived through a donor as our dad is infertile. The donor has not disclosed the full information about himself at the time, and some important details only came up after we ended up having our own children. David's kid, Ellie, 7 female, is on the spectrum. She gets meltdowns when overly stimulated and when she is not the center of attention. And if people don't pay her enough attention when she wants, she will have a meltdown too. It wouldn't be a problem, but as we found out recently, my son, Ryan, 6, is also on the spectrum and is an exact opposite of Ellie. He gets concentrated on one thing and starts excessively obsess over it, as in asking questions, talking about it, and demonstrating it. His current new thing is dinosaurs, specifically predator dinosaurs. And unfortunately, it is something Ellie finds scary. When seeing them on TV or going to the park that has dinosaur statues, she has a severe meltdown. As you can imagine, this didn't go well. Mother's Day was a disaster, as Ryan will have a meltdown if we don't let him watch dino documentaries/cartoons or bring his dinos, and Ellie would have the meltdown if he does. I have spoken to my family about it and have suggested either hosting 2 different events or having one of us come to the event earlier and leaving before the other gets there. So at least the kids get to spend time with family without getting de-stressed. However, it got immediately shut down. So I have told my family I will not be coming for Father's Day barbecue, as I don't think it is fair on Ryan and Ellie and will cause them unnecessary distress. And since they are not happy with the arrangement I have suggested, I am still taking my daughter to see the family, just not at the family events or when Ellie is around. My parents and my brother and sister-in-law are now angry at me and calling me an a-hole and that I am discriminating against my niece and her condition, but I don't think I am, and I feel like I am looking out for the well-being of both kids, as I don't think it is worth them getting stressed out. Am I the a-hole?
This story is a little bit of a spice meatball. Not a lot though, just a little baby one. let's see if we understand all the facts before we go on this journey. OP has a twin. She says is that they were from a donor.
Correct.
And there was no real background on the health history of this donor. So this is kind of like a wait and see what happens kind of situation. They say that both the twins had kids and they both are on the spectrum. They're under 10, right? Both kids.
Correct. Our poster's son is 6 and Ellie, which would be his cousin, is 7.
Okay. So OP's son is really into predator dinosaurs right now in his life. That's cute. I love dinosaurs, obviously. So he's into all things dinosaurs, and that's very cool. Now, on the other side of the room, we have his cousin, Ellie, who doesn't like dinosaurs. And this, I think in her words, gives Ellie, her niece, meltdowns. So having them both together, you can see where there might be a little bit of a conflict of interest there. Her son likes dinosaurs a lot. Her niece doesn't. I don't see, especially because they say it, they get hyper focused on both those ends. I don't understand why the family wouldn't see that logically. I mean, maybe there are nuances to this conversation that I'm not seeing as well. But from the outside looking in, I don't see where the OP is the a-hole. But I'm also willing to be shown a different viewpoint from my own, because I definitely don't have a lot of experience in this territory. You're causing the kids to have the meltdowns. What good are you doing? Those are terrible memories that you're creating for them. Yeah, that's just how I feel. I don't think she is the a-hole.
Well, let me go ahead and give you the rating of the story and then the consensus that I feel is throughout the comments.
Okay.
So the moderators put this as not the a-hole.
Okay.
And for me personally, I also see it as not the a-hole. But there seems to be a very split consensus. A lot of people are ranging towards not the a-hole to no a-holes here, with a very small segment of it being you're the a-hole. And let me just go ahead and touch up on that you're the a-hole in this regards. So some people said that being on the spectrum doesn't necessarily come hereditarily.
Okay.
And that I feel like they took a lot of offense to just saying that, hey, I don't know why you even brought this up. Being autistic isn't something that you're going to get from your parents. That's not a guarantee at all. And they've shown no correlation when it comes to that. Now, our poster went ahead and actually answered those commenters and said, look, I'm only telling you that based on who our actual biological father is, that there's a lot of mental and health issues that he has that we were not aware of. And had we been aware of it, it might have actually changed our stance on actually wanting to have children, because that's something that they wouldn't have wanted to pass down to their kids.
Okay.
On top of that, some of the people that actually labeled her as you're the a-hole said attention seeking doesn't mean that you have autism, and kind of makes her seem callous for putting it down like that, as it's not like a trait of autism to truly label someone. Now, our poster actually answered those individuals and said, I'm only reiterating to you what was told to me and how it was explained to me. And they explained it to me that when she's not the center of attention, that she has these meltdowns because she feels like she's being ignored, essentially.
Okay.
On the other hand, when she gets too much attention, then she gets overstimulated as well. So there seems to be a need for balance. Now, we actually had some commenters who have autism and said that there's a fine line between trying to make sure that all parties are comfortable and isolating a person who has autism.
Sure.
Those individuals said that they don't feel like our poster is the a-hole at all. They're just trying to find a happy middle ground where, as you've explained it, both sides aren't experiencing bad memories or bad
associations with family going forward.
Exactly. That's exactly the way that they've put it down. In fact, some people who said, look, you're not the a-hole for trying to do this situation, but if you're trying to always have these cousins split from each other, then you're kind of the a-hole. And she's all like, no. I only want this to be until they can actually grow into learning about how to deal with their experiences through the spectrum. It seems that from how our poster put it down, their family has sort of a one-man approach to this issue, where it's sort of like this one approach is how everybody that's within the spectrum has to deal with it.
Yeah.
And that's not the right way to go about things, because everybody's experience on this is very different.
I definitely can agree with a lot of the commenters, though, and you. One size does not fit all.
No.
This is a different situation where you definitely should probably be handling it the way OP is. It's trying to figure out a solution that works for everyone, not just the family having everyone all there at one time and dealing with it.
Some people actually try to suggest maybe you could focus him away from dinosaurs and maybe onto like lizards, something that's, not going to be as triggering for Ellie. And our poster says she's tried.
Dinosaurs, keep them.
Yep. Another person said, you know what? When you guys go to that barbecue, you should all wear dinosaur costumes.
The little blow up dinosaur things around.
They actually said that her husband has a T-Rex suit, and she actually has a Triceratops suit that they actually wore for her son's birthday.
That's
and
fantastic.
That they're more than ready to bring it out and actually bring it for Father's Day.
They sound like good parents.
They
good
do.
For them. That's a cute little thing.
Now let's go on to our next story involving some groceries. Am I the a-hole for leaving my husband at home while I spend a week at my brother's because of how he quote unquote buys groceries? I've been in a committed relationship with my husband for 17 years, and overall things have been great. We've had a few rough patches, but what's important to note is that while he earns more than me and is considered the main provider, I have a substantial trust fund that ensures we're financially stable. I work part-time as a teacher while attending university, earning less than him, and most of my income goes towards tuition. Our household income exceeds $200,000 annually, while the average in our area is below $50K. One ongoing issue we have is my husband's frugality. He likes to control my spending and have the final say on how he uses his earnings. It's worth mentioning that I've never used any of his income and have no intention to do so. However, the main point of contention between us is his frequent visits to food banks. Despite having more than enough food at home, he insists on going to food banks to save money. He intentionally looks disheveled and uses our beat-up car to blend in, even though he's never experienced food scarcity. I've explained to him the need for food donations in our community, even showing him social media posts from local food banks, but he remains indifferent. I suggested he volunteer or donate to gain first-hand experience, but he refuses. The unfortunate part is that since we're never short on food, most of what he brings home ends up getting thrown away. Today, I discovered our fridge filled with fresh produce and meat that clearly didn't come from our regular grocery store. When I confronted him, he admitted to going to a food bank after seeing a Facebook post about a donation of fresh food. People on social media were already asking if any was left, and there wasn't. I showed him these comments, but he brushed them off, claiming people should have gone earlier. Exhausted by the situation, I packed a bag and went to stay with my brother for the weekend, asking for space to think things over. My husband accuses me of overreacting, being vindictive, and threatens to go back to the food banks regardless of my feelings. His family is also messaging me, calling me an a-hole, and urging me to stop interfering with his choices. I turned off my phone, and now they're bombarding my brother with messages. Thankfully, he supports my decision and ignores them. All I want is to enjoy the rest of my week without being angry at my husband. Yes, I could let this go and not scold him, but the food he takes could have gone to people who truly need it. I'm not leaving my husband, but I need a few days away to gain some clarity. Am I wrong for wanting this space?
Okay, angry spicy meatball time. Your husband's disgusting. You say it yourself. You guys make $200,000 a year. You live in an area that the average income is $50,000. You are well above most people in that area. I'm going to assume that this is America. I might be wrong. You also say in your story that your husband likes to go to food banks. He dresses the part, and then he drives in her words, was it a beat up car?
Their beat up old car.
To look the part of someone who is struggling. So that way he can take food from people that actually need it. And the worst part is this clown's family also backs him up on his decision making. Actually, no, that's not the worst part. The worst part comes up. The food that he gets and he steals, because that's what he's doing. He's stealing. Goes to waste because you guys aren't eating it. I grew up as one of those kids that didn't have enough food on the table. This story infuriates me because there are plenty of people, not just kids, that go hungry every day. And this douchebag has been taking food that doesn't belong to him away from them. That's disgusting. I think the OP said that she's been having this type of conversation with him for a minute. They've been married for 17 years. And this has been something he's been exhibiting. It sounds like their entire relationship together. It took 17 years to get to this point with that. I'm shocked that it took that long because that's disgusting behavior. You're faking living in a struggle to take food from people who actually are. She had to show him on a Facebook post that people were asking from a certain food bank if there was still food there, that he took that food and just arrived home with. And then his rebuttal to this was, well, they should have got there earlier. Your husband is a foul human being. You're definitely not the a-hole, but in my mind, you are too. That's just how I feel.
Well, the consensus is that for this question that she had, she's not the a-hole. In fact, there's a lot of commenters who put their feelings and their thoughts quite well, in my opinion. Let me go ahead and read one insert on a comment that sort of resonated with me personally. And they said, I cannot conceive the level of entitlement here. That food is designated for people who literally cannot afford to fill their bellies and the bellies of their families. My family needed those donations when I was young, and as my parents started doing well financially, they started giving back as much as possible. It makes me sick to think that someone dressing in dirty clothes and conning food out of the bellies of people that genuinely need it. You are married to a con man. How does he not see how disgusting this is? I am seriously concerned that his response to you trying to reason with him is to say he's going to go to more food banks. What a vindictive and gross response, considering you have thrown food away due to having too much. My response would be, fine, you're doing this to save money? For every food bank you visit, I will go to the grocery store and spend no less than $500 on groceries, which I will immediately donate to food banks. Since you don't care about my opinion on your saving habits, you will have no say on how I spend either. Now, I think this goes to more underlying concerns. A lot of people say that they call this wealth hoarding.
Okay.
And it's truly a mentality that is awful. A lot of people do see this as stealing, and they said that she should definitely let the food banks know what he's doing so that he can get permanently banned from these places. Now, just to go ahead, and I won't say that I'm condoning anything of the poster when it comes to how much responsibility they have on this, because in a way, while she might not be enabling through her words, she's still enabling through her inactions.
I believe that.
A lot of people wondered if maybe this was because he struggled a lot. Maybe their family knew this struggle and have not been able to veer away from it. She actually says, we both grew up wealthy, but to him, he doesn't feel like he did because his parents worked. They're local business owners, and mine did not have the traditional job, as my mom was a stay-at-home and my dad focused mostly on doing charitable work. In my husband's mind, I grew up privileged and he had to work for everything he has, which is just objectively not true. Your parents working doesn't mean that you struggled. A lot of people work hard, and the people that need that food are the people that work hard and still cannot make ends meet. That is what those food banks are for.
Yes, they are.
Not just because you worked hard. Now, for me, the huge warning signs, personally, stems to beyond what he's doing with these food banks and even into the relationship, because I don't see where it's okay that she says he likes to control my spending and have the final say on how he uses his earnings.
That's what I brought up earlier was he controls his money, but he also controls her money, but she has no say in his money.
Which is absolutely baffling to me.
It's that saying that's been going around is my money is my money, but your money is my money. It's heinous and it's terrible. If it comes out of someone's mouth that you're with, you don't need to be with them anymore.
I second that. Well, this is a hot topic, and I really can't wait to hear what our listeners think about this situation and give us their feedback on what they think should be done here. But let's go on to our last story. And just to let everybody know, this is actually one that has a disclaimer that says not safe for work.
I'm titillated.
Our very first not safe for work, am I the a-hole story?
Ooh.
Am I the a-hole for not telling strangers that I wash my behind?
What is that title?
Sounds clickbait. It's not. I, 30s female, come from a country where it is customary to wash your bottom after you go number 2. It is a standard practice like in many other countries, and every household has bathrooms with bidets. I currently live in a European country where it is not that common, but you can still find a few houses that do have a bidet. And some people here wash and others wipe, but neither choice is strange to the other group. I happen to live in a house with 2 bathrooms, a small one with a toilet and a sink, and a large one that also has a bathtub and a bidet. When I have guests, I usually point them to the small bathroom, but only because it is closer to the area we usually hang out. Last weekend, my wife, 40s, and I had a bunch of friends over for a barbecue. Since the weather is nice and we have a terrace, one of my friends brought Kelly, 30s, not real name, who is from the US and I've never met before. Everything was going well and I thought Kelly was nice. I was grilling sausages, and at one point, I take one out to give to someone, and I drop it on Kelly's feet, who was wearing flip-flops. I apologized profusely and handed Kelly a napkin. She said not to worry, but she preferred to wash. So she leaves while I stay on the terrace cleaning the floor. She comes back a moment later and comments on how cute that our bathroom has a little feet washer. My wife and I were like, what? And when she repeats, I say, oh, you mean the bidet. Kelly did not know what a bidet was, and when I explained to her, she was shocked and asked if we actually use it to wash after going to the toilet. And I say that my wife doesn't. She's from a country where this is not common, but I do. And that's when she lost it. She got agitated and furious and asking how come we didn't tell her, to which I said I've never had to explain to anyone what a bidet was before. She said we should have warned her, that we need to warn our guests that I wash my behind there, that it is not normal, and that I was an a-hole. I started naming some of the many, many countries that do wash as a cultural norm, while also stating that here, even if people don't have one, everyone knows what it is. But she completely went nuts when she realized that the little towel hanging next to it is for drying my bottom. Seems like she used it to dry her feet and hands. She left shortly after, along with my friend. I don't think I did anything wrong. My wife thinks the same, but my friend said that I should have apologized, and another friend said she understood Kelly's point. Am I the a-hole? I want to note that the bidet was clean. Edit. I just wanted to add that the poop towel, as people are referring to, is the size of a napkin, and it hangs directly next to the bidet at about 40 centimeters from the floor. So I don't see how anybody could mistake it for a normal towel. Also, we don't share the towel. Each person has their own. It's just that I am the only one that uses the bidet, therefore only one towel. Last, the towel dries you after you clean. There is no poop, just like when you get out of the shower. Edit. Thank you so much for all your replies. I am trying to read them all. Special thanks to whoever awarded the poop knife. I heard today that Kelly is going back to the US, so I won't be seeing her again.
Okay. A great way to end off Monday. A splendiferous find. Okay, so we'll get right into this. Why would you walk into a bathroom as anyone? I don't care if you're American or not. You go into this bathroom. And I'm trying to see it through Kelly's eyes in this moment. I'm opening the bathroom. I see a small toilet that is made for only my feet. What? That is her response when she comes out to them is, you have a cute small sink just for your feet. Where would you ever have seen that? America, we don't got that going on. So you assume something that not even a thing anywhere, I don't think.
But Kelly's from the US.
I get that. Believe we're in America. I don't have a small sink just for my feet cleaning. So, but you walked into this bathroom in a country that you didn't grow up in. And you assume that first. And then what I don't get about the story is, because I get it in the moment, if you don't know what something is, you probably shouldn't touch it. Like, that's normally how I operate, especially when I'm in other people's homes. If I don't know anything about this contraption, I'm just going to go to the thing I do know. I think what off-puts me is when Kelly's being told this, you know how you have a realization of something, that something isn't for something that you used? I would have loved to have been the fly on the wall when information hits her brain and she goes, wait a second, I used that towel that you use for your bumhole on my hands
And my feet.
and my fuss. That's amazing. And I think maybe that's where she got irate, is she realizes that she did that. And I understand that part can be nasty, but you shouldn't have been using something you don't know. He says it, the towel's like right next to it.
Yeah, closer to the floor. Centimeters.
There's no way you can
centimeters from the floor. That's so low.
mistake in that. I understand in America we don't do, I mean, obviously now bidets have actually picked up a lot, but I can understand, especially a 30-year-old not being exposed to a bidet, especially if you've only lived in America and you've never traveled anywhere. I'm shocked she would take that type of anger with someone, especially when it's your mistake. I don't think you're the a-hole, OP. This is just a fun story you got to share with us, in my opinion.
So I would just like to let everybody know the consensus is not the a-hole.
Yeah.
In fact, we actually had somebody from America post in the comments and said, water from my bidet is spraying my American ass right now as I type to you, not the a-hole. Now, I would just like to say, let me provide you a little story of when I first encountered a bidet. I walked into the bathroom and I was like, why is it that there are two toilets in the bathroom side by side, one a smaller version of the other? As a child me, I thought the smaller one was for children. And this family must be extremely wealthy because they don't need the little plastic toilets to teach their kids. They have one built into their bathroom.
Just for them.
Just for them. I remember going to the big toilet and saying, I'm a big kid now, though.
Good for you for making that decision.
It wasn't until years later that I realized that was a bidet.
You dodged a bullet.
I did. Although I thought everything was very weird about it. It was so low to the ground. It had like a little button in the back. And I was like, wow, they even have a shower head. This is very weird. Very weird toilet indeed. But I thought it was very funny as I read this that I was like, thank goodness I know what a bidet is now.
It is a funny story, though. I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Well, as our stories come to a close, don't forget, you've seen the world, what you carry in your foot bath.
If you have enjoyed listening to us read and talk about today's stories, please rate, subscribe, and turn on notifications for new content. We are regularly posting on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I wanted to let every listener that's a dad out there know, happy belated Father's Day. We would love to actually know what you guys did for Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day.
We enjoyed a little hike and a picnic at Silver Mountain Ranch. It was actually very beautistic.
It was nice.
And the weather wasn't bad either.
And remember, if you post it, maybe we'll see it on the internet.